At Grammarly, we saw our future as building like an AI native productivity suite. Every PM is a growth PM. Every PM should be thinking about like GTM from day one. We're going to turn that into an agent platform, not only for our agent, but also for our customers' agents, also for third-party developers. I would say like the best managers are trying to figure out how they can get out of management and how someone on their team can replace them. Before, I would call it like a benevolent micromanager, right? I think I am hopefully a benevolent, but definitely a bit of a micromanager. I really think that for the first little while, maybe 6 months, 12 months, you should really be trying to run.
This episode is brought to you by Persona, the adaptable identity platform that helps businesses fight fraud, meet compliance requirements, and build trust. For example, how can you know you're really listening to me, Carlos, and not my AI voice clone? These days, it's easier than ever for fraudsters to steal voices, faces, and identities. That's where Persona comes in, helping leading companies such as LinkedIn, OpenAI, Etsy, and Twilio to securely verify individuals and businesses worldwide, going far beyond traditional identity checks. Of course, every company has different needs depending on its industry, use cases, risk tolerance, and user demographics. That's why Persona provides flexible building blocks that allow you to build tailored verification flows that maximize conversion while minimizing risk automatically. Whether you work at a startup or large enterprise, listeners to the Product Podcast can get started for free by visiting withpersona.com/product school. That's withpersona.com/product school. Welcome to the Product Podcast, Noam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's hard to get to know things about you from the internet because I couldn't find much. So I'm happy and honored to have you on the Product Podcast.
That's very nice of you. Yes, I've heard that before.
Well, I'm glad you are here, and I'm hoping that, this is not the first time either, because you were a speaker at our conference, ProductCon San Francisco last year. That was awesome to have you. It was 1,000 people in the room. This time it's just you and me, but just imagine there will be many more thousands listening us.
Yeah, that was super fun. Thank you for having me. It's a great conference.
So Grammarly, it's been all over the news recently. I obviously know Koda very well. We had Shishir, we had him on the podcast when he was the CEO there. And then after Grammarly acquired Koda, Shishir became the CEO of the entire entity, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. This is now the second time that Shishir didn't start out as my manager in a job, but eventually became my manager at a job. So I'm accustomed to this. When I joined YouTube, we worked as peers, and eventually, he became the kind of head of all product and design, and we got to work together in this same way. So I'm excited to do this again.
So the combined entity data that I was looking at, it seems like it's profitable with over $700 million in revenue and about 40 million daily active users.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that's a lot, right? And I know that you guys shared an investor between Koda and Grammarly, but beyond that, what was the product rationale to bring together those two companies?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. It's pretty ironic because independently we had written strategy artifacts and plans for the future that actually used very much of the same words. At Grammarly, we saw our future as building like an AI native productivity suite. Writing was the first thing that we really got strong at, but writing is obviously something that you do everywhere. And we saw that an opportunity to expand from kind of the best writing agent on the market to a productivity suite that would help you bring forth AI to help you in many of the things that you do at work, not just writing, but planning, scheduling, coordination, creating all sorts of documents and artifacts. And so we saw ourselves as an AI native productivity suite. That was our future. We knew that we needed a number of surfaces to bring that vision to life. Meanwhile, Koda saw themselves in very much the same way. They started from, rather than kind of more from the frame of reference of an agent, started more as an application. And they viewed like the Koda application to be an all-in-one workspace that integrates with all of your data and would ultimately help you with all of the things that you use a typical productivity suite for. So, documents, spreadsheets, databases, forms, et cetera. So really, the two companies had very, very aligned kind of North Star. And so, as we've come together, we basically, our vision is to build, an AI native productivity suite, which is, a suite of apps and agents that helps you get work done at school and in the office.
I think this is your opportunity to shame me back because I've been using Grammarly for a long time, mostly
Yeah.
the keyboard on my iPhone.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've been also been using Koda separately, but I still haven't seen the integration between those products. I don't know if you guys are also offering any other products. Like, how does that vision come to life, practically speaking?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm not shaming you. We just haven't brought too much of that to market just yet. We're working on sort of like account integrations. We're trying to allow these products to kind of run their roadmap and like grow independently. But very soon, towards the end of this year, you're going to see a number of launch moments for us that more clearly connect these things together. But basically, we're doing three big things. So the first way that this is going to come together is we're going to take all of that infrastructure that we've built to deliver the OG agent, Grammarly, into all of these various applications that you work with. We're going to turn that into an agent platform, not only for our agent, but also for our customers' agents, also for third-party developers. And we're going to basically use all the Grammarly infrastructure to connect all of these front ends. So basically all these agents on this platform can work in all of your applications just the same way Grammarly does. So I'm sure you experience Grammarly in Gmail or in Google Docs or various other applications. We underline words, we give you suggestions, etc. Imagine if many more agents could work that way and show up exactly where you work in your workflow and give you assistance. We're then going to take Koda Brain and basically make it the knowledge engine for that agent platform. So now the agents on that platform will be able to work in all of the applications you work in, the way that Grammarly does, but they will also have access to the knowledge they need to get work done. So right now, Grammarly is really good at giving you suggestions on how you might correct your words and communicate more effectively. But imagine if you were in Gmail and Grammarly could actually bring in data from Salesforce to actually, improve the customer outreach email that you're creating, or bring you inline suggestions about like latest pricing or whatever else. And imagine if Grammarly was not the only agent on that platform that can do that. So that's the first thing we're doing, is we're combining those assets and creating that agent platform. The next thing that you'll see us do is we'll start to build many more agents, both that come from us, also from third-party developers. There's a number of people that are developing agents. Think about kind of the typical AI assistant tools that are out there today, meeting nodes, like those sorts of things that would love to work the way that Grammarly does inside of all of these applications, right? Why should Granola only write your notes to like one place? What if Granola could write your notes to whatever surface like you used to take the notes and make those meetings useful to you? These are the sorts of things that other agent developers will be able to do when they build on our platform. So new agent platform, a whole suite of new agents. And then the third thing that we're doing is that we're evolving Koda Docs into that surface that essentially you work with all the agents to produce the artifacts that you need to get work done. So imagine all the things that you can do with Koda today, building team hubs, building issue trackers, OKR, internal OKR applications. Imagine if you can do that in a more agent-driven way, where you could actually tell the agent what you want to do in a particular part of the canvas. It understood Koda and knew how to manipulate it. It had access to all the agents that were on that platform, and you can work with those agents to produce the artifacts you need to get work done. And so you'll see us starting later this year replace Grammarly's editor, which is actually our highest upgrading surface, with a Koda doc that has a bunch of writing specific agents aimed at helping students and professionals like write more effective documents.
This vision reminds me of the early days of SaaS, when new SaaS companies would put themselves in the middle and say, we are replacing the spreadsheet. And now every other application is connected to us, but they will always put themselves in the middle.
Yeah.
And now in this new AI world, the next frontier is to really be that center in the application layer and develop those integrations with the entire suite of tools out there. So how do you go about really building those integrations so all this data can flow, not just within your suite of products, but also other third-party applications?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's interesting. I agree with you that time in SaaS where like everyone kind of put themselves at the center. I think that one kind of difference with our strategy is that it's less that we want to put ourselves in the center, but we want these things to work wherever you work with whatever like platform or set of data that you have that you need to kind of get work done. And so the knowledge layer that you're describing, that for us as a product internally that's called Brain, we're essentially like connecting. We're using all of Koda's Koda packs and their ability to connect to these third-party providers. We're actually synchronizing a lot of the data, creating an index, and then providing access to that index through that agent platform. So you'll be able to run RAG over it. You'll be able to kind of query and chat with the data, but also the agents that run on that platform will be able to access that data. So we're essentially kind of trying to build it's almost like a common data API across all of your SaaS applications. And because Koda already integrates with over 800 applications, and it's actually very easy to write your own integration, we're turning those kind of packs into agents that work on that platform. But we'll be synchronizing the data in and then making it available to all those agents and those users. And of course, it's all permission aware, so you only have access to the things that you actually have access to, and so on.
I want to double down on this integration topic because I think that's where part of where the money's at. And we've seen situations where you still want to develop a native integration between two products, but there are also other layers you can rely on, such as Zapier, Neon, and others. Yeah. So what's your rationale behind saying, okay, these are the integrations we need to maintain and invest in versus allowing other developers to just build on top of your API and not have to worry about being the one owning that relationship?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think what we learned from Koda is actually Koda has a very healthy pack developer community, and actually there's over 7,000 packs, but many of those packs are things that are just internal integrations. Every decent sized enterprise has all of these internal applications that don't even, there's not a public internet version of those things to even integrate with, right? And so I think that what we will likely do is similar to what Koda did, which is where are for the use cases of our products, where is there the most pull and where is there the most need to make sure that there are really high quality, high availability, first party integrations. We will build and maintain those ourselves. If the developer of that application wants to take on that integration, build their own, maintain it themselves, we'd be very happy for them to do that. But I bet we would still maintain our version just to make sure that if our customer wanted to integrate Jira, they had a high quality experience regardless of what Atlassian's priority was for building an integration on our platform. But I think still the vast majority of the integrations that are going to be available on this platform are going to be built by our customers and developers, very much so. And we would like to, similar to how Koda did, we would like to create an ecosystem and create an incentive for them to do so that it's easier to developing an agent on our platform you should get something out of that, right? It should be a way to distribute your application, or it should be a way to make your application more sticky. Because if we can make your data available in many more places than it's currently accessible, that should increase retention of your application for that customer. That changes your economics and so on. We think we can create a number of exciting incentives and create a bit of a marketplace dynamic.
Yeah, and that's how I define the evolution from platform to ecosystem, right? In a platform, I understand you're still owning most of the relationship between the integrations that you're making, while in an ecosystem, you're allowing basically the entire world out there to build on top of your platform. And you can even evolve that into an economy where the people who are developing on top of your platform, they can also generate their own business.
Exactly, and I mean our intention is very much an ecosystem, but I think we need to make sure that we've got our customers covered in the event that like an ecosystem developer isn't doing the job that they need. So you could imagine in our ecosystem that there'll be, for instance, let's say Atlassian got really excited about this and wanted to build their own Jira agents. That's amazing. Then we would just make it clear that's like this is the Jira agent by Atlassian. And this is the Jira agent by, Grammarly or whatever our name becomes.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about org design. I think you have a very interesting background as a founder, got acquired by Google, that made you work there for many years. Now as a CPO, or you were the CPO of Zamtac, now you're CPO of Grammarly. The average tenure for CPOs, I think, is like 2 years, and you are way past that.
I'm just a little bit overpast that at Grammarly, so we'll see. We'll see what happens by the end of the year.
We'll see what happens. But in general, like for someone who's been in those hot seats, in different organizations, I'm curious to know your perspective on how you manage and how do you think about your relationship with your CEO. And then we can talk about your relationship with your org.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe on the CEO one, I'll maybe just talk about more broadly as like founders. I think there's there's founder fit. I think is a really important and challenging thing. I think a lot of the reason, like the 2-year average that you're mentioning for CPOs, I think a lot of the time the reason that doesn't work out is it's sort of like CPO founder fit, right? And kind of figuring that out. And one of the things that I feel really strongly about that, which I've noticed is like not necessarily always shared in amongst my peers, is that I really think that for the first little while, maybe 6 months, 12 months, you should really be trying to run the founder's playbook when it comes to product strategy, your instinct about kind of like what to build for the customer, for the market. It's a speech that I give to every PM joining a new team, right? You go through stages of a PM on a team and building your credibility. Like, first you start as the note taker, quite literally and also like figuratively. You're just like, you're trying to improve the team's process, how they work, make them more efficient, make them scale. After you do a good job of that, then you kind of move to the team evangelist. Like your job is to make sure everyone to the side of you, everyone above you knows exactly what your team is doing, what your goals are, why you're going to win, like why it's going to have a big impact, et cetera, et cetera. And then only once you kind of move through those 2 stages, you can kind of get to that third stage of like setting strategy. Most PMs, they want to just like jump to that like third stage. That's why they want to do PM work. And the same is true, I think, for like, PMs in position of leadership. It's like, oh, I've done this for 20 years. I'm gonna join this new company, and I'm gonna figure out the strategy and set it all up and drive growth and so on and so forth. And meanwhile, you have this like founder or founders that like, I've been building this for 15 years. I know this problem like inside and out. I know this customer like really, really well. And I think even in my role, you got to go through that. Cool. I'm going to be your note taker for a little while, both figuratively and literally, right? At a different scale and like a different what it means to be a note taker in that scale is a little bit different. But I think that's a really important part of like essentially building credibility and finding that founder fit first, and then kind of learning how to operate with that founder or CEO. And that's served me well because for a lot of these businesses, like, you think you understand the problem, you think you understand the customer, but it's often like much deeper and just takes more time, I think, to build really good instinct and intuition. And I think it's okay to kind of run and help operationalize the playbook of the people that have been building that intuition for a lot longer while you learn and while you expand from there.
As a founder myself, I resonate with that statement because especially product, like the CPO role, is just so hard to delegate, right? Like, and the last thing I would want to do is to delegate the strategy at first. And I think that approach can help really show the value of why you're here and not just as a new strategist. But the other thing I want to push you on is, okay, how do you really ensure that you are not an expensive note taker and you can really earn the respect of that founder or founder CEO by pushing on the areas where you see a different thing?
Yeah, that's a excellent question, Mac. I mean, I think first, in that I would say in that note taking phase, you should be creating like incredible leverage for the founder, right? Even if you're not like setting and creating strategy, it should feel like they can have, conversations with you here and there, not without a like huge amount of time, but then that turns into people rowing and executing in the right direction in a scalable way that kind of leads to impact and drives the team to success, right? If you're not in basically a really big point of leverage or amplifier, even in that kind of note taking phase, then I think that's a problem, right? I think the other thing that kind of, as you move to that evangelist phase, sometimes you have kind of raw ideas, raw thoughts on strategy, et cetera, but how you refine those and how you articulate them to a large group of people so that they actually internalize them and understand them, and the hundreds of decisions that they're making every month are generally aligned in the right direction without you micromanaging every possible decision, I think is also a skill and an art. And if you're not providing that sort of leverage to a founder that has really strong product instinct and really strong strategic instinct, then you're just an expensive note taker. And I think like as you do that, as you help kind of crystallize and refine the story, and also spend a lot of time with customers, obviously, your understanding of the problem and the strategy and what needs to be solved gets much better. And then at that point, you could start, you start the back and forth of like, oh, well, yeah, that maybe it's that thing, but isn't this higher priority and should be working on this? And if you think about the problem this way, then we would lead us to a very different direction. And, I think you have to go through those stages. I've just seen it like time and time again, right? Like company gets to a certain size, founder no longer has like the time and bandwidth to be like in like deep in every detail as they want to be. Board is like, oh, you're growing up, time to like hire a professional, CPO or whatever. A lot of those professionals that you hire aren't builders, they're operators. And then they're like, they're very good at running the trains and figuring out how to execute, but they lack intuition or they lack instinct. And if you ask them, what should we build? And they're like, I don't know. Right. And then that's like, oil and water with like a very kind of product driven founder, is like, they have built the business on like instinct and intuition and customer understanding and so many reps. And the problem, you have to I think, keep that in mind and kind of work together as builders, like kind of over time.
Well, now I'm going to talk about that third phase you described when you become truly a strategist, and I want to connect it to how you design your own org, because at some point you really own that strategy for your product, especially in a company such as Grammarly already with multiple products and really, really big revenue. So what is your visual expression of strategy?
Ooh, my visual expression of strategy. I mean, the way, at least the way that it works in my mind is I'm just a very like visual thinker. I'm a very like designy PM, and so I like to visualize as clearly as we can an inspiring North Star, like what will actually kind of like be true about the world or the customer's experience, at that North Star, and then actually paint like I typically call it realistic fiction, right? Like here's like a couple key customer journeys that let's walk through the life of the customer using our product, at that destination. So once we kind of can, do that thing that we want to do, what is the product going to feel like? What is it going to do? And even if that's not like 100% accurate, I think it's just a much easier thing to internalize and much easier thing to remember. It's kind of like I'm sure you've heard the Airbnb kind of story of basically like the story of Cinderella, like walking into the office of Airbnb. I think it's that sort of tactic, but a little bit more grounded in here's the actual kind of like screen by screen, like kind of product expression. And I think that is helpful to not only paint the what, like kind of what is the destination, which I think is part of strategy, but I think a good strategy has to make it a lot more obvious to the team also the how. Like, okay, cool, that's where we want to be the world's greatest like note taker. Sounds awesome, great aspiration. How do we do that from here to there? And I don't think you need to answer every single step, but you need to essentially express the strategy such that people understand the sequence, the things we're going to do along the way in a way that they can attach to their work day to day.
I remember the first time I walked into the Airbnb office, a friend of mine was the first PM there. And I never forget because of that visual expression, right? They had these Disney characters on the walls that were a representation of what they were trying to accomplish from the supply side, the demand side. And I think that's such a good way to then have a conversation about how you break this down into more actionable items.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think having everyone walk by that on the way to work, I think, is a really nice trope. But yeah, that's how I think about it anyway.
So let's move to the next level, right? Like you have that visual expression, people buy into it, and then what? Especially in a multi-product strategy with so many people already, how do you make sure that we're working on the right priorities?
Yeah, so this multi-product thing is new for me. I guess we did a little bit at YouTube while I was there. We were just starting that, but yeah, it's interesting. So we're thinking about it very much as like a compound startup. And essentially I have like 4 companies inside the building, and I have founders of each of these companies, like a group of founders. We have a thread of how these kind of companies like make each other better and kind of are part of a suite that like works together. But essentially, like each of the companies, are accountable to revenue and are accountable to driving revenue for their product. And then we have teams that are accountable for driving revenue across motions. So we drive the self-serve motion for every product. We drive the managed motion for every product. That's how we think about organizing it. And then in terms of are we prioritizing the right things? How do we organize like within those product areas? I think there's a number of different ways to do it, and it depends on kind of like the stage of product you are, right? You can organize by system, you can organize by like user, like parts of the user journey, you can organize by here are our like 4 big rocks, this year, and so let's grab some groups to kind of organize that way and do it that way. But I think ultimately, if we have kind of a good understanding of the destination and we have mechanisms like as clear as revenue, then I think prioritization becomes a lot easier. And then like anything else, we kind of go through it in detail. I do think part of doing this job well, now we have a term for it, I guess. It's called founder mode. Before I would call it like a benevolent micromanager, right? Like Shashir has always been, as long as I've known him, a benevolent micromanager. I think I am like hopefully a benevolent, but definitely a bit of a micromanager. And I think there's like ways of doing that are empowering and exciting, and like we're in the work together because we really care about the details. We really want to get it right, and we really want to win. And I think there's ways that are doing that are disempowering and annoying and don't help anyone like learn and grow. And hopefully, we're doing it in the better of those 2 ways.
What are some of those ways? I'm also consider myself a micromanager, hopefully benevolent, like you said. And I'm curious to trade notes with you and see what has worked so far.
This one is hard to execute, and I tell it to teams all the time. I think teams that have worked with me for a while really buy it. I think when teams like kind of first start working with me, it's hard. But I very much try to create forums where I'm taking my CPO hat off, and I am just I am a product, just another PM, another designer in this room. Like my opinion doesn't hold any more weight than any of yours, but we're going to like work on the details together. And I'm going to often go from like the 10,000 foot range to the, why is that pixel there instead of there? And like, I don't know how to build things in any other way. I love that part of the work. It's like, if I'm lucky if I get an hour that way a week, and it's like the best hour of the week. But you have to have, I think, the relationship and the trust and respect with the team to know that like, if you're doing that, it's not a bad thing. It's not because they're somehow doing something wrong or something bad. And ideally, you find a way to do it such that they're excited when that's happening, and they bring you into those sorts of situations and conversations. So that's one of the things. I just diving into the details, I just think is really critical. And you can't do that everywhere, but I think in the spots where it's really necessary for the goals that we have, that's one of the main things that I do.
Well, I want to talk about money. You mentioned that you're kind of running 4 startups within your purview, and I love that, because that also means that product is accountable for revenue and not just for building a product. So how are you thinking about that and creating the right mechanisms to ensure that there is that level of accountability?
What we're working on is one, just that every team, actually every EPD team, each of the product teams, like having a revenue goal, and having like members in the team that are accountable either to the self-serve like revenue number or like the management revenue number. So one way to think about it is, EPD like takes on a quota, somewhat similar to our sales team. Not as directly, and I think the quota means much more and is much more consequential, obviously, for our sales team. But like, I want our EPD teams feeling like they are on the hook for that number, and they need to make sure that either the AEs, BDRs, et cetera, have what they need to achieve their number, or in the self-serve business that the way that we're acquiring users, activating users, exposing them to our functionality, that they're thinking about that from day one. It's sort of maybe another way of thinking about it is like every PM is a growth PM. Every PM should be thinking about like GTM from day one. Having a great feature idea, but having no idea about how anyone's going to discover it or how you would position in the market or anything like that, doesn't have doesn't have a huge amount of value. So if everyone on the team is sort of thinking that way, and you actually quarter by quarter try to forecast like revenue impact and make the teams feel on the hook for that forecast, and I think that helps drive some of that accountability.
And from a comp perspective, is there any type of variable component or ways for the EPD team, engineering, product, and design, to also realize that they have skin in the game and an additional incentive beyond just embracing that mindset?
It's a great question. It's not. I don't think it's possible. I would love to have everyone in EPD on a quota and variable comp. I think that would be like very, very interesting. I've never been in an environment like that, but we don't do that. But of course, there's a lot of incentives in place through the equity, right? And how we plan on kind of doing liquidity events throughout, and what that can mean to people. That's how we essentially make sure that everyone has like skin in the game.
Well, now I want to cover monetization, but from the user lens. And obviously, Grammarly started as a consumer product and now has also big amount of large enterprises. So what are the different, how does PLG in your case support your enterprise go-to-market? And is there any other type of motion that you are seeing that is helping you get there?
We're trying to execute like a PLS motion, right? So ideally, like people come in for our products in a self-serve way, start using them, get value out of them, start spreading to their teams. And then once kind of we reach a certain density, or we find a particular buyer or a particular lead kind of within that self-serve audience, our managed team comes in and tries to upgrade them into an enterprise account, a different level of service and a different level of functionality. We're also in some of our products, like Koda, for instance, actually has a self-serve enterprise tier. Not every customer needs, depending on the size and their need and like what they want to do with the product, needs like an individual to kind of work with them and support them, and they just want the functionality available in some of the enterprise tiers. And so we've seen that be effective as well, to do self-serve for those customers that are happy, paying those rates, and they don't need the support of the CSM team, the AE team, et cetera, et cetera. But that's effectively the motion we're trying to execute across our products.
So when you said PLS, how is that different than PLG?
Product-led sales, like in my view, is that the product is driving the growth, through user to user sort of interactions. But then on top of that, we try to understand and learn from how the product is being used, who it's being used from, what departments it's being used in, whatever our customers are willing to kind of share with us through the use of their product. And then we do these sort of lead qualification, lead scoring, lead identification. And when we see that there's a larger opportunity, then our sales team comes in and helps to kind of upgrade that opportunity. So that's how I kind of think about the PLS.
Got it. And thank you for clarifying, because I think that's really powerful. Like things that you mentioned, how PLG is different than PLS, and even how you have a PLS motion for enterprise. That's not always the common way of thinking about this.
We're in a very fortunate spot, which is Grammarly, as you mentioned early on, has very widespread usage. We're in, I think it's 98% of the Fortune 500 in terms of where are their users that are using Grammarly. And sometimes what happens is, there's enough people that start using it that IT comes along and is what the heck is this? And then, usually they find their way to Grammarly Enterprise that has the controls and security and things that they need. They sign an MSA, and then we're good. But then that kind of starts the process of okay, where else can we kind of go in that enterprise? Are there particular departments? Are there particular champions that would really benefit from the sort of products that we deliver? And the product spreads, and we start to kind of understand that, find those buyers, and then hopefully sell a departmental sale and things like that.
I had Shishir on the podcast many years ago, and I learned a lot from him about bundling. He's kind of the master in bundle pricing. So as I hear you talk about expansion, I'm curious to know how you're thinking about that is in terms of expanding the usage of the existing product across more users, as well as maybe connecting that with other offerings that you have in your suite.
Yeah, we never talk about bundling internally here. I'm just kidding. It's like every other day. I think that's absolutely part of the plan. You'll see us offer. We don't think. Let's put it this way. We don't think Grammarly. I'm going to go a little off track here. Grammarly is unlikely to be the brand that supports all of these products and the expansion that we have. So there'll be a new brand, and then there'll be a bundle that you can purchase from that new brand, which will connect a number of these offerings together, hopefully in a very exciting and kind of compelling price, but also functionality.
Yeah, I keep seeing new ways of pricing SaaS. Intercom is famously creating this outcome-based pricing. We see Agentforce doing more of a hybrid consumption-based pricing. And so as I hear you talk more about agents, how do you think that's going to influence the way you price your own products?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like we talk about outcome, value-based pricing, et cetera. I think that those things will come as we learn as we learn in the market. But I think our first next step is let's stick with kind of like a per user sort of model, but let's offer a bundle that's just really compelling. That if you even want 1.2 of those products, it makes total sense to go for the bundle. And then I think we'll start to learn for each type of problem, for each type of customer, what is the product that really kind of like drives the anchor value of the bundle, that's like really the thing that the customer like gets a lot of value out of. And then I think from there we might start to think about kind of different ways of pricing to make that value, a lot easier for the customer to understand, and the ROI for the customer to understand. But I think initially we're going to stick with kind of your more typical, seat-based licensing, but try to offer a very compelling bundle.
I want to wrap up this session with one of your hot takes. You said something along the lines of PMs should be less concerned about managing other PMs to grow in their career, and instead they should be more focused on how to manage many more agents.
Yeah, I think part of this, unfortunately, is just like how the PM career track like started. Like, when I was coming up as a PM, there was really no such thing as like an IC track for a PM. There was only a manager track. You were an IC for a little while, and then once you got to a particular level, you became a manager. And so it's no surprise that like a lot of PMs, like what their goal is to like become a manager. But I think if you talk to most people who have been managers, their goal would never be to be a manager. I would say like the best managers are trying to figure out how they can get out of management and how someone on their team can replace them eventually. I just think it's the wrong thing to optimize for, especially at companies that are like very much in the building stage, the PMF finding stage. I just think you want PMs optimizing for growth and learning, and being builders as much as you can. In fact, I think that also extends to managers. I think managers should be really strong builders. They should be able to do the IC work. They should be excellent at their craft, in addition to being good, people, managers, operators, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's just like across the board, optimizing for management doesn't seem like the right goal.
I love that. I agree. Managers should be really good builders.
Yeah.
And many times I find myself saying, oh my God, why am I managing so many people? And I always try to find ways to either build something myself or have a really, really small team, as small as possible, to get enough leverage to be in the details.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a good instinct. The exciting thing about, all of these new AI tools, I think it's actually going to make it a lot easier for anyone that has even modestly the desire or instinct, or wants to learn how to be a builder. It's going to be a lot easier to be a builder, because there's so many things that you don't have to learn in the same way that you used to have to learn in order to build.
Imagine if the term product manager turns into agent manager. That would be so cool.
It would be, yeah. I think an engineering manager will also be interesting. What that turns into.
No, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much.